So here's the thing, guys. It is almost November. It is October 27th, and we technically already had our first frost, even though, as you might be able to see, it really didn't take out much. We barely hit that line. I think my area or my garden was just like in a slight microclimate where it didn't get that cold, or not even that cold for that long. Because really the only places that were hit was the top of the loofah trellis. The other areas, I mean, you already saw my honeydew trellis wasn't looking good anyway, so that's completely died. So one thing I'm going to do today is kind of get this garden cleaned up. I don't know if I'm going to take the loofah or not, just because this does provide some privacy, but I want to get this garden reset. I need to plant garlic within the next few days, honestly. So I'm trying to just get this garden prepped for winter and then get garlic planted and it kind of be done for the most part. I do still have broccoli. I really don't know if I can save my cabbage at this point. It really has gotten hit so hard with cabbage moss, and it is so difficult to find all of them. The broccoli is a lot easier. But the other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually try to overwinter one of my paprika plants. I think that'd be really cool to do. I see people overwinter peppers all the time and I've never tried it, so I wanna try that. Even though some of it is still living, I've already done my last big harvest since I already thought everything was gonna get knocked out anyway. I've already said goodbye to the garden, and typically at this point, the very final week of October is technically when I typically get my first frost anyway. So even though we don't have any frost that's popping up this week either, I'm gonna go ahead and get everything cleaned up because it's just kind of driving me nuts. It doesn't look pretty anymore, even though I'm never really ready to say goodbye to the garden. I'm not gonna technically say goodbye to the garden because I'm gonna still have stuff like cool other crops in here, but it is time. What are you two doing? Are you having fun? I also still have carrots, which I don't think these are getting, oh, they actually are getting kind of close. I could probably pull those pretty soon. I'm gonna keep that one there. My front space here, I believe, is where I'm planning on planting the garlic. I still have a few days to change my mind if I am going to do that or not. But I'm thinking I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna remove my trellis space here. Even though I like this a lot and I love the big entrance, I'm almost thinking I'll either just move it backwards or I'm going to make my trellis tunnel kind of do a curve and maybe add onto it and maybe kind of block out more of that back space. Because honestly, even though I love this and I love the big entrance of it, it does become quite the pain in the butt when you are trying to walk through this constantly and you're just trying to dodge vines, because I'm not the best at wanting to prune things. I really love a whimsical look, but I also want to rotate where the garlic has been, and the garlic has not been in these two beds at all. But with that being said, I'm also thinking I'm going to go ahead and remove my strawberry bed and get all of those strawberries removed as well. I'm needing a different variety, or I just need to completely reset the bed. They started to produce decently for me and then they just didn't. I'm almost thinking I want to find a June bearing variety. I have an ever bearing variety. So when it comes to this foliage, I am probably going to bag a good amount of it because I still never got a compost area set up. I was kind of on my top priority list and I never got to it. I've been able to save a decent amount on compost, and I haven't this year because I haven't had a compost pile all year since I decided to take out that space in the spring. It's mostly because there's a few different areas we're really not sure what we're going to do with, and that's going to determine where I put this compost pile. So this just might not be the year I compost. I do need to get these oyas out as well and get these cleaned. Found these little melons when I was tearing down the trellis, so I'm gonna give them to the chickens. I can honestly say I had the best tomato year I've ever had, and it makes me really happy because the last few years my tomato harvests have been terrible, and I've been really wanting a good tomato year. I think we're going to be really close to a year's worth of salsa, probably crushed tomatoes too. I still have some tomatoes in the freezer I need to make into sauce. We just might have a year's worth of a lot of our tomato products. I don't make ketchup. Ketchup takes a lot of tomatoes, and then same with tomato paste, but I'm hoping I have pretty close to a year's worth of sauce, salsa, and crushed tomatoes. If I didn't, I got really, really close this year. I've had goals to get this much preserved tomato-wise for probably 3 or 4 years now, and I've always fallen short. It was a lot of work, but it feels so good to have all that stocked up. I will be growing all 3 of these varieties again. I grew a new variety this year called Inca Jewels. The other 2 I've grown every year. One's just a typical Roma, and then Supremo I've grown for a few years. Supremo didn't do that great for me the year prior. It got blight pretty early on, so I wanted to try it again, and they just produce such beautiful, consistent, large Roma fruits, and that's exactly what I'm looking for because I grow all of my tomatoes pretty much for preserving purposes, so I grow all paste tomatoes. Started these tomatoes, was it end of March? Serranos can be so hard to see. They blend in so well. I didn't see a hornworm all season long. I knew that they had to be around just from some of the holes they were making, but they weren't doing too much damage, so I didn't care. But look, we have one right here. Let's give it to the chickens. Oh, I hate how much they stick to what they're holding on to. Get it. Look at all those cabbage worms I found today. Come on, girlies, I got a treat. You ready to go in? Come on, honey. Come on, honey. Come on. Go in. Good job. All right, let's see how many eggs we got for the day. I need to clean y'all's coop tomorrow. We only got 2 eggs today. 2 eggs, and that is where we are at with the garden. These are T-post clips, and of course I get the hang of removing it on the last one. All right, see if I can do this. Oh, I spoke too soon. I still have one more. All right. Man, these things look so much bigger when they're off. I'm gonna leave that for now. Okay, so let me show you how this grass can be such a pain for me. So you can see it's sprouted over here, and underneath the soil we have all of these little pockets. Like, it's connected right here still. We have a sprout here, a sprout here, all through here, and you can see all of like the little roots on this guy. So you really want to kind of dig into that soil and get as much as that as you can. And while doing this in the fall and winter, it's really just gonna help you get ahead in the springtime. And then this typically isn't too much of a problem for me. It's just I have to do a lot of digging out this time of year, but it's gotten better throughout the years. It's just a common problem I end up having. See, I am digging and I am pulling this up, and it just wants to keep, like, it is such a deep root. I'm sure it's going to snap on me at some point, but oh wow. So nothing snapped. I think that might be the tap. As you can see, look how long that is. That's at least 2 feet. You can see how this branches up and just keeps spider webbing throughout. So I'm going to keep digging in this little corner, try to get where it's sprouting and pull up as much as I can. Getting a really good grip on it. Look at that root. That is literally crazy. Let's try this again. I might have to wait for my husband to help me on this one. This was just a bunch of zinnias and cosmos that I threw over here because this has been a trickier area for me over the years. So I've just been testing a few things on what might actually grow well. So I'm just gonna get this cleaned up, and I'm probably going to get the chicken coop cleaned up as well, and then I'll probably call it a day. All right, let's see how many eggs we got for today. Only 2 again, girlies. So I supplement them with some oyster shells. It looks like it needed filled up here. This was one of those things I didn't realize was so important when I first got chickens. And my first set of chickens, their eggshells were really thin. Oyster shells are a good source of calcium, and it's good for really strong eggshells. Gonna go right to it. I'm not gonna lie, it's been really nice to get out in the garden and actually get it cleaned up a bit. Toward the end of gardening season, I am just harvesting and preserving so much that the garden gets away from me. I feel like I'm not doing any like actual gardening there for a while. Following day, it was time to tackle the strawberry bed. I ended up deciding that I wanted to save some of the younger plants, so I was carefully ripping everything up. It was so windy on this day, we were having gusts in the 50s. I got the bed weeded and I topped with an organic soil amendment mix, and I got everything smoothed out. These rakes come in handy so often when gardening. So my husband got the stakes out for me. Do you guys see how tall these things are? They are also heavy and also very awkward. I got all of my strawberries potted up, so hopefully I keep these alive under my lights over winter, because I couldn't make a decision on where I wanted to plant them out in the garden. So later on, I grabbed some soil samples. That way they could like sit and everything, because I was going to do some soil sample testing the next day. Looks like we got almost an inch of rain yesterday. That's nice. So it pretty much rained all day yesterday, so I didn't do anything in this garden. I was kind of expecting that. So today is actually Halloween. It's the 31st of October, and I think this is the latest I have ever planted garlic. I want to say last year I planted on the 25th or the 26th, so I'm not too far off. But 2 days ago, so when I last saw you guys, at the very end of the evening, I collected soil samples for soil testing, and I did all of that yesterday. So I did the soil test, and it kind of turned out how I was expecting it to turn out. I figured this bed would be pretty different just because this is where the strawberries were, and these two beds would be very similar because this is where the trellis was, and everything was pretty uniform as far as like flowers and planting goes. So when it comes to the pH of the beds, these two were pretty similar. They were slightly different, but they are still in the range of being just fine. And pH wise, these are sitting at about a 6.5 to a 7. This bed though is a little bit more acidic. This one is ranging closer to the 6 to 6.5 area. And even though I could go ahead and adjust this a little bit, I'm going to wait at least a handful of weeks. And one of those reasons being is I've already thrown some soil amendments on here. So 2 days ago when I was adding my compost soil amendment, in that compost soil amendment, there is limestone, which will kind of up the pH a little bit. Then there's also another line called dolomitic lime is what I believe it's called, and that can also affect the pH a little bit. So I'm going to hold off at least for now on doing any pH adjusting, because for garlic anyway, you're looking at a range between a 6 and a 7. So this soil technically is in range anyway, and I don't want to do too much to it. So I'm going to hold off. I'm going to retest in a few weeks, and then that way if I do need to adjust anything, I will then. But for the most part, I'm still going to add a little bit more soil amendments to these beds, because when I was testing the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium, what I figured was I was pretty depleted in nitrogen and phosphorus, which is pretty common for my garden, and pretty much level with potassium, if not in a surplus with potassium. So I typically try to avoid potassium and just try to supplement in with some nitrogen and phosphorus. So with that, I like to use bone meal to do that, and that will also help us when it comes to root development in the garlic here in those beginning months as we are looking for root development, because that's where the phosphorus comes into play. Nitrogen is more for green growth, but we are depleted in that, so we are also going to add that. So with the bone meal, I'm also going to add worm castings, which in my experience, worm castings are pretty much just nitrogen. It's a 1-0-0, which means 1 nitrogen, 0 phosphorus, and 0 potassium. And then with that soil amendment I've already added, there is some kelp meal in there, and that is also more on the nitrogen side, but it also is on that potassium side, but it's very low in the potassium side. So for the most part, we are just adding in some phosphorus and nitrogen to the soil, mostly with bone meal. So I'm going to go ahead and get those amendments sprinkled in, and then we are going to get everything ready to plant garlic. Honestly, don't overthink too much when it comes to this stuff. Soil testing is just really helpful to kind of see where you're at, so you're not adding anything that you really wouldn't need, and then it can cause issues. For me, it's always helped a significant amount. still have a good amount of the garlic that I grew this last year downstairs in my basement. I am going to be using some of my own today for planting. So this is a variety called Italian Purple. I've really enjoyed this. I believe last year was the first year I've ever grown it, and when you roast it, it's very buttery and it's been storing really, really well. And this was one I didn't order. I did end up ordering seed garlic just because I really wanted to keep all of my own garlic and not replant it out. I really wanted to have a year's worth that I grew for garlic powder and fresh eating, and I'm pretty positive I'm going to get that. So last year I did 2.5 garden beds, and this year I am doing 3. I'm doing 3 in hopes that maybe I can save just a little bit more of my own seed garlic, and then maybe next year I won't purchase as much, but I do plan to use up all the stuff that I grew, and it's all storing really, really well this year. So I do have some favorites that I ended up buying again. I have a ton of Chestnut Red, Georgian Fire, and then the Incheon Red. This was my soft neck variety, and then I have a newer one this year called Russian Red that I will also be planting. So what I'm thinking is I'm probably going to devote one whole garden bed to chestnut, and then from there, since I have 2 other beds, I'm probably just going to split them in half and do halves of each of the other varieties, and that'll probably be what I do. So I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to start by making holes first or breaking open the cloves, but if you're interested in a very detailed video on planting garlic, harvesting garlic, curing garlic, I have a full video going over my entire process of everything. I'll make sure to link with you guys. I go into a lot of detail when it comes to all things garlic. Garlic is my absolute favorite thing to grow, and I'm so excited we are starting the 2025 garden today. So I need to get my yardstick. A yardstick and a dipper tool are like the 2 things I find to be game changer when planting garlic. So when it comes to planting, I like to shoot for 8 inches apart, about 2 to 3 inches deep. You can get closer to about 6 inches, but 8 inches has worked really, really well for me. Obviously you can't plant as much with 8 inches apart, but I really, really liked that. This last year I had very uniform big garlic bulbs, so that is what we're going to be doing again. So I was able to get 170 cloves planted. So hopefully we get 170 heads of garlic in June of next year. We do have some rain coming. Tomorrow's going to be a pretty nice day like today was. And then we have rain for the next 4 or 5 days. So I really wanted to get this in the ground today. But garlic is officially planted, and our first thing for 2025 is in. So the very last thing I really need to get done in this garden, as far as pretty much winterizing it for now, is to just level out the beds and get some mulch on them. Whatever doesn't have mulch on them, I think I have like 6, 7 beds that don't have mulch that I need to mulch, and then also some grow bags. Actually, the last thing I need to do is take down this trellis. You ready, girls? Let's go in. See how many eggs we got for the day. We got 1. Well guys, the sun is setting and we are officially done in this garden, getting it reset, minus a few things, like I pressed off to mulch a few things. Still gotta harvest this broccoli and stuff like that, but for the most part, the 2024 garden is officially concluded and the 2025 one has officially begun, which is so fun. Honestly, I wish resetting the garden that I got to like replant it, because I was starting to get really like with the garden toward the end because it was just a complete mess, and having it reset now is so nice. But I know how much I'm going to miss the garden in just a few weeks. But we are going to start planning for the next season ahead, and we have many things we need to do indoors over the next few months. So I hope you guys will join me for all of that. But thank you guys so much as I got the garden cleaned up this week and got the garlic planted. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.